Hi, I'm Phil Harbottle and this is my 50th video discussing British science fiction history. My previous video showed how E.C. Tubb was one of a team of writers novelising the Gerry Anderson Space 1999 TV series, producing 17 tie-in novels between 1975 and 1977. But the novels had ceased following a cancellation of the series after 2 seasons. On becoming his new literary agent in 1999, I was shocked to learn that Tubb had a number of unpublished novel manuscripts, which his previous agent had failed to circulate. When I tried to find publishers for these excellent novels, I received a second shock. UK publishing houses were hostile and unsympathetic to publishing Tubb, because no new novels by him had appeared since 1989, and the once prolific author was now virtually forgotten. I had to start all over again to re-establish his reputation by initially looking to small press publishers such as Gary Levy's New York Griffin Books series. You see there, World First Editions, first published by Gary Levy's Griffin Books. These first 3 covers there you see are by Ron Turner. This one was by Sidney Jordan, the creator of Jeff Hawke. I also published a couple of new Tubb novels with my own imprint, Cosmos Books. Bear with me. There you go, Cosmos Books. And there's the sequel, The Sleeping City. I published Cosmos Books with the help of a US partner, Sean Wallace. However, I was able to sell translation rights to several European publishers where Tubb's name was still remembered because of later reprints in those countries. Here we see 2 books first published in Croatia, and this second one here, Star Slave, was a world first edition. Tubb also had many books published in Italy. Here we see just a couple of them. City of No Return and The Possessed. Now, the West was unable to commission novels from Tubb. I was able to commission new short stories, which you see there. And in Fantasy Annual 1 and 2, and also in Fantasy Adventures. Bear with me. There, new stories by E.C. Tubb. Tubb was understandably reluctant to write new novels, so I could only get him to do short stories. Now turned 80 and in failing health, he had little incentive to invest so much of his now precious life in writing novels on speculation. However, that was soon to change, and the catalyst in restoring Tubb's appetite and productivity was Space 1999. In the summer of 2001, I'd been approached by a new American publisher, Eric Reichert of Eagle One Media, who wanted to reprint Tubb's Space 99 novels. Eric agreed my suggestion to open the programme with Alien Seed. Their March 2002 edition of Alien Seed was very nicely done and included an introduction by Ted. But despite excellent reviews, the publisher couldn't get adequate distribution in bookshops, so his paperback line sadly failed. Happily, Eric went on to successfully switch to publishing graphic novels, but the publication of Alien Seed had been a turning point, as we shall see. In the summer of, Ted's 5 Space 99 novels were still fondly remembered by members of the official Gerry Anderson fan club, Fanderson. In 2001, the then chairman Chris Bentley, together with his friend and Fanderson member David Sisson, arranged to meet and interview Tubb at his London home. Prompted by their intelligent questions, Tubb gave a great interview. Here's the interview for the magazine. And the result was a long, superbly illustrated article that appeared in the Club magazine, FAB number 42. Excellent article, very well illustrated. And it was rounded out by a complete Tubb bibliography of his novels. What's that? Now, following this interview, Tubb had told Chris that he would be attending a forthcoming London book fair, along with his agent, myself, and gave him the venue details. He also gave Chris my address, and once he'd got in touch with me, we were able to quickly agree that Fanderson might reprint some of Ted's remaining Space 1999 novels. The first publication was a superb November 2002 reprint of Earthfall, a novel I discussed in my previous video. This was limited to just a few hundred copies because it could only be sold to Fanderson members under the terms of their special license. It quickly became a lost book and a rare collector's item. That same year, alongside Ted, I had the pleasure of meeting Chris at the next London book fair, and he brought with him Fanderson's public relations officer, Martin Gainsford. The two of them had been authorised to discuss with me Fanderson's possible future reprints, beginning with Breakaway. But Chris revealed to us that in writing Breakaway, Tubb had worked from a script that had undergone a late change before being filmed. Rather than dying in the atomic explosions, Lunar Commissioner Gerald Simmons had actually survived. But because Ted had killed him off in Breakaway, his publisher Futura decided to omit adapting the later episode Earthbound, in which Simmons had played a prominent role. Now, Chris suggested that in reprinting Breakaway, Fanderson might include Ted's adapting the missing script change to be added at the end of the book, with the scenes of Simmons' earlier death being edited out. But Ted had a better idea that involved leaving the original book untouched and working in an ingenious science fiction rationale for Simmons surviving. Ted then set to work adapting Anthony Turpelov's script, the longest writing assignment he'd undertaken in many years. Ted had relished the task so much he'd recovered his zest for writing. Then came a further catalyst. Out of the blue, I was contacted by Matteo Latosa on behalf of a new US publisher, Powers Media. Matteo offered an attractive contract to reprint both Breakaway and Ted's other script-based novel, Collision Course, as part of his ambitious Space 1999 Year One omnibus. Matteo was pleased to learn that I also now represented Brian Ball, whose novel Space Guardians could also be included. Consultations with Chris followed, and it was agreed that the Powers contract could be signed, and instead of Fanderson publishing Breakaway, they would instead publish an entirely new novel, Earthbound. Earthbound, consisting of the Turpelov adaptation, plus Ted's novelizing of two further lost Space 1999 first season-based scripts that had never been used, The Face of Eden and The Exiles. I relished working with Ted on Earthbound, assisting him in the difficult task of merging established science fiction tropes based on logical extrapolations of real science with the sometimes illogical and fanciful situations of the TV scenario. Ted succeeded brilliantly. Here we see Fanderson's superb new book, published in September 2003. And it had an excellent photo section. If we can find the inserts. There we are. Now these photo inserts were taken from the actual television program of Earthbound, which had been transmitted in the first season, but not novelised at the time. And it also contained alternate versions of the two other scripts which were changed for the second series. These pictures here are from the second series, which changed the stories completely, but still had the same central characters, so they could illustrate Ted's Mark I version, as it were. So that was that book. A very nice book. It also had a, bear with me if I can just find it here. It had an afterword by Chris Bentley, which told how the book had been conceived. Meanwhile, Powers' ambitious plan to publish a first-year Space 1999 hardcover omnibus was put on indefinite hold, whilst the first worked on a smaller omnibus of the 6 second season books by Michael Butterworth, finally published in January 2006. We see that book here. Powers jumped to the year 2 because with only 6 novels by Michael Butterworth, it was a somewhat shorter book, but still a massive book, nearly 500 pages. They also embarked on a complete reprint program of all the novelizations of Matthew's other enthusiasm, the Prisoner TV series. The dynamic Matthew also had the idea of creating entirely new Space 99 novels and commissioned several authors to provide them, including William Latham, David McEntee, John Kenneth Muir, and my own client, Brian Ball. Here we see the first new novel, Resurrection by William Latham, published in 2002. Now, Brian Ball's brief was to create a new novel, Survival, which detailed and explained the events leading to the mysterious disappearance of the character of Victor Bergman, played by Barry Morse, from the second season. First published in May 2005, this was a truly superb novel with a moving forward by Barry Morse himself. Now that book would be later reprinted, completely reprinted in a new paperback and hardcover edition in February 2017, with a brilliant new cover by Ken Scott. We see the paperback here. This is an absolutely essential item for all fans of Space 1999 and the late author, a much-missed personal friend. Now, yet another ingenious idea was an anthology, Shepherd Moon, edited by Matt Yore and consisting of new novelettes and short stories by various authors spinning original Space 1999 stories. So yeah, its contents page, that it contained 2 stories, Brian Ball, Cargo, and Dead End by E.C. Tubb. Now, I myself had suggested to Ted that he could base the story Dead End around this New Worlds, this 1951 New Worlds story entrance exam. A couple of illustrations just to have a look at by Alan Hunter. It was just a short story. There it is. It was just a 5,000 word short story. Now it must be emphasised that Ted's original novelette here was 10,000 words, and there was 5,000 words of entirely new Space 99 background material added to this story, and Ted melded the two together into a strong 10,000 word new novelette. To my dismay though, whilst the stories were paid for, the book was not published at the time. The sheer quantity of new titles now being handled by Powers and its attendant personal pressures on the personnel of a small press would cause the publication of Shepherd Moon to be delayed until 2010. E.C. Tubb had actually died in 2010, but I continued in my capacity as literary agent for his estate. It was only following my obituaries of Ted in Locus magazine and a national British newspaper that I was approached by a leading UK publisher, Orient Books, who made me an offer I couldn't refuse for digital rights to more than 100 Tubb science fiction novels. But because of the author's franchise TV tie-in complication, the Space 1999 novels were not part of the deal. But whilst most of Futura's Tubb Space 1999 books were based on actual TV scripts, two of them were not. Alien Seed and Rogue Planet were entirely original Tubb stories. He just used the lead TV characters in his own storylines. I wanted desperately to see them back in print. So shortly before he died, I'd worked with Tubb to revise the first of these, Alien Seed, changing the names of all the characters and taking out the runaway moon background. Alien Seed was set entirely on the moon itself, so this was easy to do. We simply changed it to a moon base on a normal, stable moon. The revised novel was entitled Child of Space. But after it was completed, Tubb had worries and doubts about its viability for English markets, on the lines of, some publishers will recognise its origin and kick up a fuss with the publisher. I don't want that hassle. He was quite ill at the time, so I respected the decision, though I disagreed with it, and the new novel remained unpublished, stored digitally in my PC. Then, in 2015, I was approached by Endeavour Press, a new UK digital and print-on-demand publisher who was interested in publishing any available books by Tubb. I promptly edited a number of new collections for them, new short story collections. We see one here, Project One, which Endeavour were happy to publish. I then invited them to get a license from ATV's successors for the original Space 99 books. But suspecting that they too might pass on this added complication, I also revealed that I had a digital file of Child of Space. If they'd like to consider publishing this book, which was Tubb's own property, I'd be happy to send the digital file for their consideration, and I myself would revise Rogue Planet for them to take out all the TV trappings. Endeavour predictably passed on the Space 1999 versions, but commissioned me to provide the two new, in inverted commas, books for them. Rogue Planet became Destroyer of Worlds. We see the two books here, published by Endeavour. But then in 2019, I was again contacted by Powers Media. As well as renewing their lapsed contract for the Year One stories, they now wanted to reprint Rogue Planet, having already republished John Rankine's original novels. I then explained how Tubb's two original novels were currently in print, as child of space and destroyer of worlds. To publish the original version of the latter as Rogue Planet would be a breach of Endeavour's copyright, so at first I had to turn down his request. Matteo was very disappointed at this rebuff. Wasn't there some way that Powers might be allowed to add Rogue Planet to their canon? Then I had an idea. After the Endeavour Press contract was made, they'd rebranded as Endeavour Media, and their business model was not to publish any more print editions, but to concentrate entirely on ebooks. However, their old POD editions remained in force. Accordingly, if Endeavour simply surrendered their POD paper print rights to me, I would then be free to conclude my own new agreement with Powers for paper editions only. Their ebook editions would not be affected and would continue unchanged. To my great delight, Endeavour agreed. Now, I'd long feared that the ambitious Year One Space 1999 omnibus might never appear, but the dedicated team at Powers, with Matteo now assisted by author William Latham, finally achieved this fantastic feat in December 2019. We finally see here, their magnificent, nearly 700-page hardcover edition. Now, the first 100 copies of this book contained the signature sheets which I'd sent to Matteo way back in 2002, signed by E.C. Tubb, John Rankine with Douglas Mason, and Brian Ball. First 100 copies had that. And so here, all of the first season episodes were now in print in one big hardcover omnibus. Lovely book. Regrettably, both Mason and Tubb had not lived to see it published, but Brian Ball did, although sadly he died just a few weeks later. His widow Elizabeth told me he was proud and absolutely thrilled to see it, and it had brightened his final dark days. Now, Powers' reprint edition of Rogue Planet was an instant success. And so, with both books now available, Matteo agreed to reprint Alien Seed as well. But his readers soon called for him to bring out Tubb's remaining 2 original books. I was happy to agree, and Powers went on to reprint all of Tubb's remaining Space 99 novels, all of them with superb new covers by the talented artist Ken Scott. Rogue Planet was published in September 2020. There was a very small run earlier edition, quickly withdrawn because it had numerous printing errors. It's now a collector's item. Alien Seed was published in November 2020. Earthfall was published in September 2021. And the final novel, Earthbound, has just been published in November 2022. All of these new Powers editions have been thoroughly proofed and edited, making them the definitive editions. They're also packed with many bonus features in the way of a complete Tubb bibliography and introductions and afterwards by both Tubb and myself, as well as Anton Phillips, who played Dr. Bob Mathias in the first series, and several Space 1999 scholars and experts, including Chris Bentley. You see his name at the bottom of that one, I think. Now, viewers of this video will be interested to know that Chris Bentley has recently had published the magnificent non-fiction book on the entire history of the Space 1999 television series, together with all its myriad spin-offs, books, comics, annuals and much else. Space 1999 The Vault is a quality hardcover published by Signum Books. Let's just take a quick look at this. Chris Bentley's book, The Vault. It details all the background to all of the episodes. There's the Earthbound, which was later novelised by Tubb. There we see all the personnel, the leading actors and actresses in the series. Episode guides, all the behind the scenes background information on the production. An amazingly detailed book, packed with information. Here's another one of the episodes which Tubb novelised. The Exiles. Then we see the books which I've been talking about in this video and my previous video. Showed them in the previous video, these books. There's the books I've been talking about. There's American editions. These are the Michael Butterworth books in the second season. We saw the omnibus of. There's all the spin-offs, all the comics and annuals and so forth. Complete worldwide coverage. Excellent book. Now this book and all of the Powers books are well worth anyone collecting.